Do you think this is the future of socialization?
I know it is.
We are here with Jonathan Leary, who is the founder of Remedy Place, which is absolutely beautiful. I think we're just gonna move in.
Thank you.
It's really interesting, and we were speaking earlier, and I'd love for you to address this more. Just, this is a space that can't be disrupted by technology in a way.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
I think right now we're more digitally connected than ever before, but people are lonelier than they've ever been. And we actually need, for our health, human connection is one of the most powerful things to amplify our health. You know, last year Harvard released an 80-year-old study on the correlation between human connection and longevity, and it's so important. You know, and I think what's happening now is people are isolated, they're alone, they're only connecting through social media for the most part, and that's having a major consequence on our mental health, but also our physical health. And now they're actually showing the studies and the statistics on, over the past 20 years, every single social interaction with our family, our friends, all of the time that we used to have is drastically going down, and they're showing the correlation with physical health problems. So people are physically and emotionally and mentally sicker just because of lack of connection.
That's wild. So there's no new AI product that can disrupt.
No, I think AI only helps make things accessible and helps us create more individualized programs. But the future, people need more time together and they need healthy experiences.
Yeah.
You know, in a place like New York City, when you go out with your friends, it's really like drinks or dinner.
Yeah.
And alcohol is a dissociative and it's a depressant. And if you're thinking about I'm alone or I feel like I don't have great relationships in my life, and then when you do socialize, you're drinking something that is actually disconnecting you more, it's counterproductive. So our goal with the club is to use self-care as a new form of entertainment that are experiences that you can have for a date night, what you do instead of a happy hour, what you would do on a Friday night, everything to where you'd host a big event. But we use the experiences to enhance your physiology, which also enhance your relationships and will allow you to have fun at the same time.
Yeah, so I mean, do you think this is the future of socialization?
I know it is. I think it's like right now, people aren't well. You know, we're sicker than we've ever been. Last year, the top 8 chronic conditions in the US were higher than they've ever been. So we need to change what we're doing and how we approach our health. And we're mostly working with busy professionals that are really proactive, they're go-getters, probably more type A personality. So a lot of the times we hear like, I just don't have time to do self-care. But if you can make this a place where they take care of themselves, where they connect with the people they love and have fun, we can multitask and put that all in one. And I think as people start to put this in their routine, they see how good they feel and how much better they perform in life and how much more successful they are in every vertical of their life. You understand, like, why would I do anything else?
Yeah.
You know, you get one life, and the healthier you are, all the things that make you unique, all the best qualities about you will come out. And if you can have that, like I said, while having better relationships, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, and what you've done here too is you're integrating this, so it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to go be alone and take care of my health. You can really make this the new gathering place, the new zero bond, essentially.
No, exactly. And I think, you know, in the past with most like health experiences, right? A spa, they're all isolated experiences. Like if you're getting a massage, you're just face down on a table, you're not really interacting. So if you think of the old spa days, or even most spas now, they're not social, which is a great way to take care of yourself. But if I'm telling you that human connection is actually the most important thing for our health, we need more of it. I mean, one of the research article that just came out a couple months ago said that social isolation, so being alone, could be as detrimental on our health as up to 6 glasses of alcohol per day.
What I take away from that is alcohol is fine. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, but that's like,
wild.
Alcohol is better than being isolated, but if you can make sure that you remove the alcohol and you're not isolated, you can have a little bit more of an impact.
I mean, it is so tragic to think that, so many people are so alone in a way they haven't been. And we were speaking about, would you open a location in Europe?
Yeah.
You said London and you said no to Paris. Why?
Right now.
Yes,
Remember,
in
like,
this exact moment.
10 years ago when I was talking about Remedy Place, everyone would say, John, that's the most LA concept in the world. That won't work anywhere. And now we are getting global attention. You know, I was speaking at a couple conferences last week, and it is shifting, but certain countries are a little bit more behind within understanding health. But eventually, I think the whole world will have to change. But London is a really prime market right now. Like, everyone in London's talking about wellness. And the thing is that they just caught up, or they're trying to catch up on the fitness boom. But this whole self-care recovery space is also happening kind of at the same time, and I think it's going to surpass it. So London's a very international country, you know, and I think people, I mean, the amount of press we get there, the amount of requests we get from London, it's just whether or not I want to jump across the pond.
Yeah. Well, so New York is the one city where you now have 2 locations.
Yes.
Hopefully you'll have even more. This seems to be resonating in the city. Why do you think people in New York are so eager for this kind of experience?
I think, listen, living in New York's a high-pace space, right? Like, life is nonstop. People are working so hard. They're probably not sleeping as much. They have to perform in their jobs. But also, not only can we remedy both of those things if they're not sleeping or if they need to enhance their performance in their work, but I think what's really resonated with New Yorkers is if people are sober curious, or they are sober, or they're like, hey, I just want one less night of drinking, there's nothing to do. So when you start introducing this as a date night, or like I was saying, as the happy hour or your night out, and you make a routine out of it, you start to realize, like, wow, this is so much better. And I think there's just so many people here. So I think we could have so many clubs. Obviously, I don't want to oversaturate, but I know that, I mean, we could be an amenity to one building and be a really busy club.
Yeah. Yeah, and who are some of the people that you've seen adopt this approach? Are you seeing companies kind of try and lean into this and use
Everyone.
it as, so tell us more about those folks
It's
who are
such an
embracing
interesting
this.
time where if you're a company or a platform and you're not thinking about what your wellness edge is, you're behind. And I love seeing the adoption across industries that I never thought we'd be entering. I mean, we just released an announcement on October 1st about our partnership with Kohler. Kohler's a plumbing manufacturer. You know, like every sink, toilet, tub in the US is Kohler. I've been working with them for over 2 years. If you asked me 5 years ago, would I ever be working with Kohler, I would be like, I don't think I would have built the connection in my head of like, yeah, like let's do that. But they've been making baths for 150 years. And if I want to create the best ice bath in the world, naturally that's the best fit. But we're getting reached out to from like automotive companies, airlines. I mean, it is wild, the conversations we get to have. And in order to create a global change and a global shift in awareness, every single big player, every single big company has to play their part to help just teach and educate. So I'm excited to continue doing these partnerships because it allows us just to reach more people, not to talk about remedy, but really just to put control back into everyone's hands. Like I was mentioning before, like people are sicker than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And you don't need to come to remedy to be healthy. You just need to understand how your body works. What are the small things that you can be doing every day that will make impact? And we're just here to teach you that.
Yeah, one of the observations you made as well that I thought was interesting is, you know, some of these technologies like red light have been around for decades, right?
Yeah.
Cupping, acupuncture, so many of these things we know are healing.
Yeah.
Only recently seem to really be gaining traction. And you were linking that in some ways to social media.
Yeah.
And it's a really great way to get in front of people. So I'm curious to get your take more on why you think
I think, listen,
that's contributed to
there's
this
pros and
rise.
cons of social media, but I think one of the biggest pros is awareness. You know, for things like acupuncture or meditation or chiropractic, in the past, there isn't a lot of marketing dollars going into those experiences or treatments. So unless your friend told you, I did acupuncture and it saved my gut health problem or my stress or my anxiety, that's the really main introduction that would maybe spark interest for you to go try it. But, you know, pharmaceutical companies can do billboards, commercials, ads everywhere because they have a lot of money. But I think what's happened with social media is a free platform that it's allowing someone to talk about their experience about, wow, acupuncture really worked, chiropractic got me pain-free, the IV, it fixed all of my deficiencies faster than supplements, oh my God, I felt like a superhuman after my ice bath. I've never felt this good. And when people that have platforms, like we've had Kim Kardashian to Drake post, when they're talking about it, it's not really about who they are, but it's about someone that has so much of a reach talking about something that is positively affecting them. Because a lot of the things people are like, there's not a lot of research, but there's not a lot of money going into the space. But I can show you with wearables in real time the impact of what these things do. And I've been doing these things for over a decade. But I can scream it at the top of the rooftop. There's only so many people that can hear and see it. But like I was saying, as more people or companies or platforms on social media talk or show how effective these things are, now we can get hundreds of millions of views on it, which we would never have that reach before.
So interesting. Yeah. I also want to talk about you and your journey, because you still are a doctor.
Yeah.
You left that field and started Remedy Place.
Yeah.
So what precipitated you to leave, and what frustrations or experiences did you have when you were working in medicine?
Yeah. So listen, Remedy was my original practice idea. So I started working on this in 2012. I just knew I didn't want to work in a hospital. It wasn't the environment that I wanted to treat in, but it's not a fun environment for the patient or the doctor. So when I started my doctorate, every Sunday I worked on the business plan to like, all right, what is this dream practice? How am I changing how I would approach, how I would care for people? Went through all those years in that program, graduated, had this 158-page binder, and this was my business plan. I knew nothing about business, and I just Googled everything, and I figured out everything I needed to know, went to the bank, thought I was getting a business loan, and the woman kind of smiled at me and she's like, sir, you have no money and all this student loan debt. How am I supposed to give you a loan? And I was like, well, that's why I need a loan. Quickly found out that's not how it works. So I pivoted and I opened up a concierge practice, not because it was fancy, but at that time it was really all that I could afford. And I started with just athletes, and it was a non-surgical, non-drug approach to surgery prevention and chronic pain rehabilitation. And then I realized, I'm like, why am I just treating athletes when we all need this? So I opened it up to people in the music and film industry and corporate level executives. And for 5 years, I got to just travel the world with cool people and cool families and save them from surgery. But then I got to listen. 5 years of extra additions to the business plan to understand what were my patients willing to do, what were they not willing to do, what were their common lifestyle habits, what worked, what didn't work. And that's when I kept updating the business plan. And one of the biggest things that I saw in my practice was, in order to fix the root cause of all my patients' issues, they had to make a lot of lifestyle changes. And they would say, Dr. Leary, I feel incredible. I cannot believe my issues are gone, but you're really ruining my social life. And I started analyzing, like, why is it that everything we do when we socialize is bad?
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a club that enhanced their health and their social life at the same time. And I figured out the business side. I figured out how to raise money. My patients became my mentors, and they became my investors. And then in 2019, we were able to open the first club.
Wow. And I mean, opening these clubs requires a tremendous amount of investment. Obviously, you need a space in a very expensive part of town.
Yeah.
But all of the equipment you showed is really pricey. So how did you do that? And it's obviously so difficult to sell this new concept that feels against the grain of what a lot of people in society are doing as well, I would imagine.
I think, listen, right now, the best of the best technologies, people need to know that we only offer the best of the best that's out there, but it is extremely expensive. And I think right now, because it's still a new market and these things aren't reaching like mass audiences, or like a hyperbaric chamber manufacturer is not making the same amount as like a car. But I think if you look at even like down to a TV, like when flat screen TVs came out, they were so expensive, and now you can get one for next to nothing. Over time, all of these technologies should come down in price. Mm-hmm. And then it'll be more about just the design of like really what is a preference that you like. It's like a car.
The more it's adopted,
exactly,
the less expensive it can be.
But it's expensive and it takes a lot of work, and no one has done this before. So our team having to figure out things every single day that have never been figured out, we're really trying to pave the way and innovate every step of the way. Because what I'm realizing at these conferences, and as I talk to more people around the world, they're looking at Remedy as like the motivation and inspiration to then build their own concept like this. And that excites me, because I really do think that this whole social self-care, social wellness, self-care in general, I think this is going to become the biggest thing in the health and wellness industry. And if we can help and inspire all other companies, all other people to learn how to do this, there should be a place like this on every single corner because everyone needs it. So right now it's a lot of extra hard work and the team does a phenomenal job, but we're just getting started.
I mean, yeah, how did you sell this concept initially? You mentioned you had clients who wanted to support you, but I can't imagine that was an easy thing to do, to try and get all these investors on board and create an entirely new concept.
What was interesting is they were all my patients. So I was working with them for a really long period of time. Maybe I fixed a chronic back issue or a gut issue or like something that was really personal to them that was a big thing to fix. And I think during that time, they got to just know me. And I don't think any of them really understood what Remedy was, but I think they believed in me. In the beginning, it wasn't really that hard to raise money once I figured out that that you can raise money.
When you're not getting a loan from a bank anymore.
One of my patients was like, you need to create a deck. And I'm like, what's a deck? Like, I had no idea. But I think once the first club opened and people walked in and saw it, they were like, oh, wow. And I still think that most people don't fully understand it until they walk in the space. And once you have something that is so enjoyable, something that like our promise is you will always leave feeling better than you walked in. And once you start seeing the impact, when you start socializing the club with people that you love, you kind of realize like, wait, this makes so much sense. Why am I not doing this? And then once you have the light switch go off, it's pretty easy from there.
Yeah. Where do you think the space is going to be in 5 years? Do you think we could start to see more investment from the government potentially in this? Do you think that people are going to adopt it more? Yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think there'll be a very fast global adoption. I think everything here is going to become so normalized, and I think people are going to understand their health correlates to their success. And no matter what they want to be successful in, their happiness, their relationships, their work, they're going to start understand like this is the most important tool, and your body and your mind's your number one investment. And if you're not investing in it, you're not going to have the return that you want in life. But yeah, I hope that insurances and governments eventually step in. And my goal with Remedy is to collect as much data as possible and to work with our community to figure out how we can all collectively within Remedy and with our partnerships, collect more data to show effectiveness and efficiency. And if we can have hundreds of thousands or millions of data points a year of showing these things work, I think government and insurance companies are going to have to start accepting it. And then the day that happens and all these things are covered by insurance, it becomes a very different business and industry.
Do you think that could happen in the next decade?
I hope so. I think in the next decade, for sure. The next 5 years, I think is going to be an uphill battle. But I think there's so many ways, just like you think of your favorite hotel or restaurant, there's so many ways to deliver this experience. But we're just seeing, it is happening so fast. And it is getting big attention. And if the awareness keeps going at the pace that it is, maybe we'll get there faster than 10 years.
I'm curious too to get your take on Tony Robbins opening his own wellness club.
I love it.
We're starting to see a lot more people get into this space.
Everyone will get into this space. I'm telling you, this is the future and it's exciting. That's where like I said, Remedy isn't just about Remedy, it's about creating awareness and helping pave the way so that other people can also do it. But I'm excited for him. And I was just with his co-founder speaking on that panel in Paris last week. And yeah, I think you're gonna start seeing all cool people, all different people all over the world start figuring out how they're creating these social wellness spaces.
I think it's already a $10 trillion industry.
Yeah.
So do you think it's getting even bigger, or do you think wellness clubs are going to take a larger portion of the
It will
10
be
trillion?
substantially billion. It will be substantially bigger. If you look at every single thing in the health and wellness space as a whole, like each subcategory, every year just keeps climbing. And I can get the latest statistics for you of like how many trillions exactly we are and where they think we're going. But it's interesting because I think most things in the health and wellness space either need full transformations or they're parts of the industry that haven't really been developed yet. So when I see that and I already see how big the market cap is, I know that it's going to be substantially more because we need a lot of change.
Yeah. You've created some products.
Yes.
What other things are up your sleeve? What are you working on? What's coming down the pike?
I don't know what I could talk about right now.
Okay.
No, listen, we're gonna
It must be good. Now you have to talk about it.
We have so many exciting things that we're working on. We want to diversify the business to figure out more ways that we can reach more people, right? Whether it's more things that are accessible to things that you can use at home. You'll start seeing Remedy tap into so many different categories, because our whole thing is, once again, we want to make people feel better. We want to give them a new healthy way to socialize, and we can do that in and outside of the club while still expanding these clubs across the country, or maybe world. Yeah.
Maybe anything else that you can share about why you wanted to be in New York specifically? What about New York excites you?
Yeah.
And I also like the idea too, because I think so many people come to the city and they're like, oh, this is so unhealthy. I need to leave to get healthy again. I need to go move to the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. But I feel like you're clearly rejecting that idea in a sense.
Listen, I think nature is extremely important for our health, but I think New York City is the best city in the world. And I think what's interesting is, because I live between LA and New York, but I spend most of my time here now. LA, we think that people are the healthiest, and we think that lifestyle is the healthiest, but I actually see more health problems in LA versus New York. And I think it's actually quite simple. And the reason why I love living here so much more is you walk more. In LA, you don't walk. In New York, you walk everywhere. And I think if everyone just got 10,000 steps in a day, their health would be substantially better, or anything they're dealing with would start to dissipate. I think we're more socially connected than any place in the world in New York City. You can walk out, meet a million different people, be in a million different environments. And when you start looking at the structure of what is social connection, people just sometimes think it's about the number of people in your life, but that's not true. It's really broken into structure, function, and quality. And I think if you start analyzing the opportunity to grow each one of those subcomponents, New York City sets you up for success to have all of those. And it's spontaneous. And I think life needs to be a little bit spontaneous. You can't control your life in New York. New York kind of has its own mind and its own plan for you. And I think that is single-handedly the reason why people actually are healthier here.
Interesting. That is such an interesting assessment to hear from a doctor, because everyone feels like they're so ill, I feel like here.
And I think stress is good. I think there's obviously a barrier, just like you can go to the gym and overtrain and it's not good. But what people don't realize is stress is getting a really bad name. And it's everyone's pulling away, that's bad for you, that's stressful. But moderate stress actually enhances your performance and memory. And there's so much research out there that actually shows how a certain amount of stress enhances you. And I think we need stress in life. We need resistance in life. In a time where people mentally are not the strongest, the way to make them more mentally resilient is through stress.
Well, it's very stressful here.
Yeah.
But that's good to hear.
Strong.
Yeah, because I always think I'm I'm getting stressed now. My hair is gonna go gray.
Well, I say
gonna
this.
Gain weight.
Even with my patients, I tell them you're not allowed to use the word stress. We call it resistance. So if you're feeling like you're under a lot of pressure, it's all right, I'm feeling a lot of resistance now, but that's gonna make me stronger. And if you start reprogramming the brain of how you talk about all of these things in life, the power of a thought or intention is extremely powerful. So if you start learning how to talk about it and how to phrase it, it also will help make you more mentally strong by actually changing the neurological connections and circuits in the brain. But yeah, think of stress as resistance. And obviously if it's too stressful, come jump in Remedy and do a little extra self-care, but use it as a tool to make you stronger.
Are there any other words you tell your patients not to use?
Pain. Pain is not an actual thing, it's a signal. It's not like a body part, right? It's just a signal to the brain and back. So there's ways to manipulate that. And I think in order to fix pain, everyone is an opioid crisis. Everyone has something wrong with their body. And we've always been told to rest. It used to be RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. And they debunked that over a decade ago. And people are still being told to rest, don't do anything. It's actually, they changed it to MICE, movement, ice, compression, elevation. because movement cures pain. And if you can restore proper motion in that area, pain goes away. And I think my patients, if you start telling yourself, I have a chronic back issue, I wake up with pain every day, you're also sending that circuit in the body. And it sounds a little crazy, but it's true. And I would just tell them, like, instead of telling me you're in pain, instead of telling people around you that you're in pain, you have to just tell them that you need to move better. So when you wake up in the morning, oh, I just need to move better today. Or I just need to restore motion, because motion fixes the pain.
Wow. That's beautiful. I mean, that's like a psychological lesson. It's so integrated.
You can do that with every aspect of your life. And I think learning, like this is where the power of education with even mental health is, because how we talk about things, if you just learn how to communicate with your body and with your mind, you can actually start shifting. And as these, routines turn into habits, habits turn into change. And that's where the real magic happens.
That's a wrap on today's episode of NYNext. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. You can also catch us on the New York Post YouTube channel. And of course, be sure to follow us on social media for the latest updates and behind-the-scenes content. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. Join the conversation and let us know what you think.